Thank you to Tom and Gordon, Wayne, and Jacqueline for that presentation. And now we're going to go to our live Q&A. Just as a reminder, if you have any questions for the panelists, please put it into the Q&A session and panel, and I will be going through those. So my first question is for Gordon. And the question is, do inflatable life jackets need to be worn when the boat is underway? And this is a question by a law enforcement officer. So go ahead, Gordon.
Here I am.
There we
Yes.
go.
Um, so this actually ends up being there's a few entries in the Q&A about this particular item, and I guess I will preface this whole thing by stating that it's my opinion, based on labels that we've generated for UL certified U.S. Coast Guard approved product, that a Type 5 is a conditional requirement. It may be that it needs to be worn. It may be in the case of a whitewater swim rescue, kayak rescue vest, that you need training on how to use the safety belt and how to release and other training with that. It's a conditional approval. It is not necessarily a must be worn requirement. So Mustang has our MIT 150 is an approved jacket that's type 2 performance. It's a type 5 because it's convertible between automatic and manual modes, which is pretty typical for a lot of product that's out in the market right now. In that instance, though, when it's armed in its automatic mode, it has a window. You can see that it's armed. You can see that the indicator shows green. In that mode, it does not have to be worn to meet carriage requirements, and the label does not state that it has to be worn. Now, there is a secondary clause below that, and I kind of talked a little bit about this in my presentation, because it also applies as a Type 5. It can be used for commercial vessels under 40 feet when not carrying passengers for hire. In that case, it is a Type 5. It's deployed as a Type 5. And in that instance, it has to be worn to meet carriage requirements. But that's not a recreational use. That's a commercial space. Um, so anyway, I hope that, and I'm actually trying to dig up a sample of the label to show the group, for that particular product, just to put an example in front of people. So I'll let you go to the next question, but if I
All
can,
right.
I'll share that.
Thank you, Gordon. All right. And actually, you said that you wanted to answer this next question too. So Gordon's on the spot and he's paying attention. So the next question is, will level 100 and above devices be approved for general recreational use? Is there a requirement that level 100 devices be regularly inspected by a professional?
Um, I don't think I can answer this. I can ask
Oh,
more questions. So I have questions about this too. In the CFR 160.255, which is the commercial devices that specifically refer to the standard for level 100 product. And it's the only CFR that specifically refers to the level 100 products. There is a clause in the scope of that that says it's for commercial use. It says nothing about recreational use. And it says that there's a requirement for an inspection every 12 months. Um, I don't I don't know whether Jackie's actually attending the call or not, and she might be able to answer this. She might also not know this off the top of her head. But from everything that I can see with that Code of Federal Regulation, the CFR limits it to commercial space. The standard is not written with a prescription only to commercial. So it was intended in the standard to be a recreational and a commercial standard. But I'm not sure at a practical level that we have a path towards a recreational approval. So that's something that we got to work on. And I'm actually hoping to address that um, as we come up into other conferences and at this one, if we can.
And I just wanted to make sure that Tom Dardis didn't have anything he wanted to add to that question, that answer.
Not on that one. Thank you.
Well, and I thank you for asking the question because when you ask the questions, it illustrates that information that we still need to find out the information for. So continue to ask those hard questions so that we can figure all this out because does get complicated. So our next question, I think, is similar to what we've talked about, but I'm just going to say it just to make sure we get it out there and answer it. Um, so that next question is, in previous conferences, in an education breakout session, it was decided that if in your state a 13 or 15-year-old does not have to wear a life jacket, but decides to wear an inflatable and it fits, and they have the carriage requirements, is that okay? And I'm going to go ahead and ask Tom Dardis to answer that because I think he may have answered it in this previous conference.
So this is a very nuanced question based on, and the answer is very nuanced. So as we all know, federal law doesn't require anybody over the age of 13 or 12, above the age of 12, to wear any PFD unless you're operating a PWC, right? So we'll leave PWCs out of this because I'm pretty much universal. Everybody has to wear an inherently buoyant PFD while on a PWC. So in a state or anywhere where you don't have to wear a life jacket, then a currently 13 to 16-year-olds could wear an inflatable. The caveat is those can't be the only life jackets on board the boat because they won't meet carriage requirements. They're perfectly functioning by the old type code devices that still have a restriction that says may not be worn by children under 16 to meet carriage. These still would not meet carriage requirements at the federal level, which means you would have to have some other device on board for them to wear or have to be able to show law enforcement if they pull you over and say, show me your fully compliant PFD. Um, that's the beauty of once we move to the level devices, that won't be a problem anymore, right? Um, but we say wear it in accordance with the label, and if the label says doesn't under 16 doesn't meet carriage, it wouldn't meet carriage. So you have to have another device on board for them if they're going to wear that device.
I hope that answered your question kind of, Donna, but it is, who knew life jackets could be so complicated, right? So it's become that way. So this next question, Joseph said, hi, Joseph, but I think that Gordon already answered about the level 5 and about how it counts. And I do want to, but go ahead, Gordon. Gordon
No,
said.
I was just going to say that I saw another comment come up on the Q&A, and I think Jackie brought it up, and it is that um, she's got two different inflatables, one that needs to be worn and one that doesn't. And that is absolutely right. There are some that have to be worn. They're part of the conditions of testing that happened, or there's a performance attribute that they need to, or, one of the most common ones is if it's a legacy standard, not the harmonized standard, but if it's a legacy standard approval and it doesn't have the indicator window showing the mechanism and showing that indicator saying that this device is good to go, you most likely have to wear it because you need to determine that it's appropriate to wear it and put it on and it's going to work before you go out. So that's the whole predication for that. And there's enough variability amongst the type of inflator mechanisms and other things like that. That might be a situation where you have two very similar jackets. One's got a window, one doesn't. One's got an indicator, one doesn't. One must be worn, one doesn't necessarily have to be worn. Anyway, so if only it weren't confusing.
Well, and that's so So the question that Gordon's answering is one that Jackie put in. And what Jackie has said that she bought, just to lay it out for everyone, because not everyone can see the questions, she bought two inflatables from the same store and manufacturer at the same time. And one had one thing requirement on the label, must be worn to meet carriage requirements, and the other did not. And they had different buoyancy ratings. And so what Gordon is saying that they may have been like, even though the same manufacturer may be manufactured two different times under two different labels with the different UL standards. So, but I think what Jackie would push back on, because I know Jackie, right? She likes to push back. That is so confusing, and we need better tools to make that, right, Jackie? She's probably like, yeah, man, we need some good tools to help people figure this stuff out. So thank you, Gordon, for answering that. So now I'm going to flip over and I'll probably flip back and forth, but someone has asked in our Q&A, what is the future of level 150 inflatables like those used for sailing? Do you know there, Gordon? I'm asking Gordon. See, I put Gordon
Well,
on the spot, not you, Tom.
it it's it was a partially accepted standard that was a good way through development with the standards and technical panel with the technical committee. Um, so the language is still out there. The standard exists, although I would not suggest it's in final form. Um, but it was USCG sometime back said essentially that they were not going to be looking at using L150 as a level, and that they rolled most of the requirements for life jackets that would have been in that standard into the L100 standard. Um, but I don't know if Tom can speak to that with more clarity or not, about the future of that. I do think my own opinion is that it would help consumers if we had a level 150, if we had all of the levels that are on the placard, if we had those available to consumers so that they could make their choices based on what I think is a pretty well considered level system, um, available, that would be great. But we're not there at the moment.
I have nothing to add to that. That's really a question for Eng4, and Jackie Yurkovich isn't on the call. So that's really a question we can pass along to Eng4, and maybe so let Jacket Association's having their meeting in about a week. That's something that we can bring up during that meeting if we plan to continue with the rest of the harmonized standards.
It's on the agenda down there, but
And before we move on to some other questions, Joe from Alaska just wants you to know, Tom, that Alaska, there's some wild west out there, wild, wild west, and they don't require life jacket wear on PWC. So that's,
I didn't realize they operated PWCs that far up in the Arctic.
I think in Alaska they do just about, anything they put their minds to. So
And if I
yeah.
could go back to Jackie Lundstrom's question about the inflatables, the one beautiful thing is if they're wearing their inflatable life jacket, then it doesn't matter what the label says in relationships to carriage, because if they're wearing it, then they're all meeting carriage. The problem is and this is forgetting about children under 16 wearing it, but if you see an adult wearing an inflatable, it doesn't matter what the label says about wear because they're wearing it. They're in
I
compliance with the carriage laws. It's when they're not wearing them, and then you just make them put it on.
I love that point, Tom. That is like, that should be our number one thing. Like, confused about life jacket labels, just wear it, just wear it, then no confusion. And then I think we've already answered this question from Chuck, but he's asking again if level 100 life jackets are legal for wreck boats. And the question is not sure yet. That is to be determined in future. Is that correct, Gordon and Tom?
No, level 100, sir. The Coast Guard says you can wear any wearable PFD, and a level 100 is a wearable PFD for recreational. I mean,
Okay,
you have to read
okay,
the label
fine.
for commercial activities, but we the one thing we say is that you can wear anything, as I said in my presentation earlier, you can wear anything from a type 1 to a level 50 once level 50s are on the market. You have to decide if that's proper for your what you're doing and what the label says, but we don't say you can't wear a level 100.
Sorry that I got confused on that. Anything to add on that, Gordon?
Um, so, so Tom, just something else to take into consideration then, would you require a recreational user to get a 12-month inspection? Because that's part of the 255 approval series requirements.
So then if it's not, so my position as a rec boat guy would say, no, we can inspect our own inflatables. What's the difference between a level 70 and a level 100 inflatable that a user, myself, Stacy, is there any difference between a level 70 and a level 100 that a rec boater would just mess up so bad the device isn't going to function? Um, but if that's what the label says, well, then we'll have to work that out because
The
I would
the
be
label doesn't say that, the CFR does.
right. So that's something we'll have to bring up because if that's true, well, then there's going to be a problem, right? So then you would need level 70s with level 100 performance.
Yeah, right. You're starting to get into where we're going next week.
Yeah. Clear as mud, Stacy.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you for
unfortunately,
totally clearing that up for me. Uh, I do have one more question, and if you have questions, so someone says maybe in Alaska, a PWC is called a snowmobile. Thanks, Captain Peg. Yes, perhaps it is called a snowmobile. So a question for you, Tom. How enforcement officers and educators helping the public understand and adapt to these updated standards?
How are the law enforcement officers helping?
Yeah, I
So
mean, what kind of tools or resources do
yeah,
law
so
enforcement
as
officers
earlier
and
as when in my presentation we brought up that we've awarded multiple grants over the last few years in preparation for the harmonized standards. The National Safe Boating Council, the U.S. Power Squadron, the Coast Guard Auxiliary, um, those organizations that still put out paper brochures as well as electronic information. They, in preparation of the harmonized standards, have you know literature that's available to the states and also the nonprofits and also the public. If they call and ask for it, we'll clearly send anybody the information we have. And you can reach out to either me, the state educators should know who I am. Travel the last couple of years has been weird, so you might not have met me if you're new. um, but if you reach out to me or anybody at the Coast Guard or the National State Boating Council, we can help you with the literature that's available. And most of it's free of charge. So if your state's in a position where you don't have the ability to buy a lot of this stuff, we actually have a pretty good quantity that we can make free available free to you to help you out. And then there's electronic stuff. Everybody's websites have some information about the harmonized standard, including the Light Track Association's websites.
Gordon, anything to add to that?
no, I don't think so. There's a lot to do.
Yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to make sure, Gordon or Tom, see if you had any final thoughts about the harmonized life jacking, the process and the labels and the level 50 devices that you wanted to kind of leave as your final thoughts today.
I just wanted to share. Whoop, there it is. I think is that sharing? One moment. Can you guys see that? So that's just showing an adult universal inflatable label. I'm hoping. Is it working? Oh, yeah, okay. So it just it's a type 5 because it's convertible. There's no must be worn exclusion for this particular device, even though it is a type 5. So the type 5 part of it is just the fact that it's a convertible mechanism. You can change it between manual and automatic. Anyway, so
And we did have one question pop into the chat, another question. So, is there a plan to work with organizations that have extensive, semi-accurate information online to get them to correct them in accordance with what we've discussed today? And I'm sure Tom would like to chime in on that one.
Well, I just want to thank Chuck for volunteering to work on that committee. Haven't seen Chuck in person for quite a few years. Um, always, right? We're always trying to correct, inaccurate information on websites. The problem is, as previously stated, there's just so much information out there, and it changes, and it takes a long time to track this down and trying to get in touch with the right people to make the changes on the websites. But and the Coast Guard doesn't have the authority to make people do it. Mustang doesn't have the authority to make people do it. We can only, just strong arm them as best we can to say, hey, your information is incorrect, and here's the correct information. Please make that available. So, but what I want to do say is, hey, a lot of people have been working for a long time to get these harmonized standard devices to market. I think the last great hurdle, at least for the level 50s, is over, and hopefully the manufacturers will have these things in the market in the near future. I have always believed that the level 50 devices, because they must be worn, but they're very wearable, will be a game changer for most of the ways that we see people that are having boating incidents, drowning. Um, and again, Chuck, we look forward to you helping us correct all these information deficits.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's everyone who's attending this conference needs to, do their part to try to that's why we're here learning so we can go out and educate our public and um who hears this information. So, final thoughts on anything, Tom, on the life jackets? Final thoughts?
Nothing else on life jackets, but hey, thanks for everybody's time today, and we look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. And Stacy, thanks for being the MC.
And final thoughts from you, Gordon. You don't have to praise my work or anything. You can just stick to life jackets.
I actually I was actually complimenting you just a few minutes ago to my compatriot downstairs who's attending. But
Oh, hi,
no,
Larry.
I do think this is I cannot emphasize enough that there's still a lot of work to do on the communication on especially as we move into this realm of AI and AI aggregation of data to kind of clean things up as much as we can and get the information clear. And right now it's not clear to me. Never mind to any two of us, never mind to a group of us. So there's a lot of work for us to do as a community to kind of help uh, to get those leaps forward. And actually, I've been torturing Chuck lately, Tom, you'll be glad to know, with some of this stuff, and he will also be at presenting at LJA next week. So he's going to bring some of his pain to bear for those of us in the room.
Well, thank you guys so much. And it does show the importance that we do need to keep talking about these, the new harmonization. And, it's worthwhile to keep asking the questions. So I appreciate all the people online asking the questions. Thank you for helping us do that. So thank
Yep.
you for Gordon and Tom for hopping on with us right now. And thanks for your information.
Thanks, Stacy.
All right. We are wrapping up a little early, okay? So this is your time to go out and spread the news, right? And talk to your family and your coworkers about what you learned today. People can still, if you had coworkers who weren't able to come on today, they can still log in tomorrow and join us for the last day of the IBWSS. We're happy to have them. So, as we wrap up today's session, I want to thank each of you for being part of the conversation. Your participation really makes the experience a lot more meaningful, and keep putting those questions in the Q&A. Oh, Donna put a question in last minute. So, but we do have time. So Donna says it would be helpful to have a flip chart brochure to be offered at stores that could help explain life jackets. Love it, Donna. So Education Committee for NASPLA, that might be a good product to work on. Um, and I will pause for just a minute before we close. Any last final thoughts that you have? Pause and I'll let you put them into the Q&A. All right, and you can still put your questions in. So remember tomorrow, more prizes for those of you online. You may get a surprise. We have a couple more in the hopper, some really good ones. We got some good more. Uh, I'm looking ahead to see what our sessions are tomorrow. We got some great sessions tomorrow lined up. More information from the Coast Guard about outreach programs. Um, Informational brochure. If you have not been to National Safe Boating Council's website, they have some great informational brochures about the life jacket labels. It's in the resource. I'm looking over at Peg. It's in the resources section of the National Safe Boating Council. If for some reason between today, if you look on the National Safe Boating's website and you can't find it, let us know tomorrow, and we'll put that link into the chat in the lobby. So don't forget tomorrow, come to the lobby. You can put some questions or say hi to folks in the lobby, but when we start, you're going to hit enter those sessions, right? Our sessions tomorrow start at 9 a.m. I have to keep looking down to make sure I'm right. So we'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. to continue the conversation, dive into some more, full morning of programming and a little bit into the afternoon. And then until then, take some time to rest, recharge. Thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.